Hi everybody and welcome along to this ARC360 On Demand May 2022, where this week we'll be focusing on products, equipment and services. Before we go too far, I'd like to say a big thank you to ARC360 corporate partners, Solera Audatex, BASF, BMS, CAPS, Copart, Emax, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Innovation Group, Merca, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and Sherwin-Williams, as well as our partners Aztec, the Green Parts Specialists, Indasa, and Prasco UK, as well as our associate partners, Gemini Accident Repair Centres, Trend Tracker, and Thatcham Research. As always, we like to issue our ARC360 disclaimer, so the views and opinions expressed during the following webinar are those of the individual contributors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the contributor's employer, organisation, committee or other group or individual. Please respect any or all contributions and enjoy the show. So I'm delighted to have join us today two of the biggest repair operations in the UK, Peter Randhawa, Group General Manager at Steel Automotive Group, and Dave Sargent, Managing Director of Gemini Accident Repair Centres. So we're here to explore today the products, equipment and services, which I appreciate is a huge area covering many different facets, but to understand a little bit more about the supply chain elements impacting those respective businesses and what they rely on at present. Enjoy the show. Thanks very much for joining us, Peter. Great to catch up with you.
Thank you, Mark. Good to be here.
Is all well? I mean, your feet firmly on the ground. You're moving at quite a rate these days. So how's the world treating you?
This year's got us very fluid. We're moving at very, very fast pace. It's all good. A lot of consolidation to do in terms of bringing all the businesses together, but very exciting times. And very looking forward to the future.
Great stuff. Well, it's interesting speaking to a lot of other repairers, fellow repairers, and everyone's trying to second guess the next move. So you're keeping everyone on their toes, which is great stuff. So got you here today specifically to talk about the products, equipment and services, because you're on a fast pace, moving world, lots of acquisitions under your belt in recent times. You're probably faced with many other different challenges, if you like, to others, but again, probably lots of similar challenges. So what are the kind of things that your business can't do without at the moment, and what is influencing that, I suppose, apart from the obvious, if you like?
So it's a good question, Mark. Depending on how you see things in terms of what equipment is and how you class it, for me, equipment is courtesy car, and that's one of our biggest if you like, headaches at the moment. As you can imagine, the business is growing, and whilst you do inherit courtesy car and the allocation of courtesy cars from the new businesses, we are still running what we call a hybrid system, where we own some of our cars, we lease some of our cars, and then we use Enterprise as a backup service for us. The cars are due back, and there's nowhere to get replacement cars. We're trying to do deals with our current suppliers of courtesy cars, where we're trying to do small extensions even, just to give us a bit of time to get the next set of courtesy cars in. Very, very demanding and taking a lot of resource at the moment. And for me, that is the biggest thing we as a group are facing, that we need to resolve.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you bolt businesses in or add businesses, I mean, does that then become a greater problem? Is there a point where you try and consolidate everything in terms of that courtesy car provision?
Yes, that's the idea. I've only just announced 2 new acquisitions. The idea is to consolidate it, bring the whole fleet under one umbrella. I would probably hazard a guess we've got somewhere in the region of about 1,000 courtesy cars now within the group. It's a big number. Yes, absolutely. Consolidation is the way forward. But again, these things take time. Like with any business you take over, you've got to get the staff on side. You need to almost with business as usual, okay, and then slowly start consolidating and bringing people on the journey with you.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. So plenty going on by the sounds of it, that's for sure. And in terms of, I suppose, specifically relation to products, equipment, and services, and again, your interpretation of what that is, but has the attention, challenges, issues, opportunities changed in recent times? And does that, apart from obviously the rapid growth you're going through, but does any of it kind of, backdate to the pandemic as well, and in terms of re-emerging out of that situation?
Yeah, so on a positive, I think the paint supply has been very steady. I can't say we've experienced issues in terms of paint. That's probably been one of the most steadiest parts of the business. I think IT platforms been pretty steady as well. We've got our own internal consolidation going, because when you buy businesses, you want them on one platform, but that's our own development, if you like, rather than an outside one. I suppose parts is the biggest change, where before the pandemic, you were getting parts within 2 to 3 days within reason. It's more like 7-8 days now. And that itself has a knock-on effect, and not a knock-on effect as in it stops production. You can manage production, you can manage operations. It's what it comes with as the price of an overhead. And the overhead price on that is, it dramatically affects the returns policies when you're buying parts. And with that, I mean, if I was to buy some parts now, I am booking 2 weeks ahead. For me to be quite sure that the whole basket of parts arrive, I have to give that 2-week window to the customer. Some of that basket will arrive within 3-4 days. Some may take right to the end of the booking in day. Now, if that customer changes anything, or we have to reschedule, or something happens that doesn't make the flow of that job go through, I think what happens in the business is that we fall out of our returns policy. Yeah, and therefore, if anything happens to that job, it gets cancelled, we find extra damage, etc. That part is no longer, or them parts basket is no longer returnable. That is an issue. On top of that, you also got the issue of payment. So if you have a 30-day payment terms with a part supplier, and you're booking 2 weeks in advance, on top of that, you've got, I suppose, the repair cycle in there as well. You may be paying for them parts even before the cars actually arrived on site. So that definitely needs to be looked at, because it affects cash flow. It's something that Richard and Gavin both are looking at, and we're collectively having conversations with the suppliers regarding that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's certainly a recurring theme that stems with conversations that I have with repairers across the industry at the moment. So plenty going on. I think a lot of people are looking at that sort of area at the moment. So, I'm going to state some of the obvious now. So we talk capacity, we're talking energy costs, and this is kind of, across industry, inflationary pressures, technology, personnel, some of the key themes that we have ARC360 been talking of, and we've heard from many opinions. Is there any one sort of greater having an influence on the business at the moment?
So I suppose, Mark, in terms of utilities, yeah, that is having a big influence. To us, a little bit greater, because when you're buying or you're kind of adding new sites on, if you purchase an existing site, you've got to change all the terms of contracts over, and you jump into what's called an out of contract rate. Okay, that is extortionate at the moment, and it's not a 1 week or 2 weeks fix. So before you know it, you're into $3,000, $4,000 of a month's bill, and you times that by what you're doing. So that is probably unique to us in terms of what we're doing, but that's led by the industry of utilities, and that is challenging, very challenging. And then I suppose it's then putting it all into kind of one group, one contract, one start date, one finish date. That itself takes a lot of resource and time and energy to put together.
He says with a wry grin on his face, yeah, and we know who's doing that, don't we? So in terms of the other challenges specific to your business now, I suppose a lot of what we've spoken about so far is kind of, applicable to repairers across the sector. But is there anything, obviously, with you growing at the rate you are, and when you acquire businesses, lots has to happen behind the scenes that nobody sees until it all of a sudden, emerges. But the different challenges you currently have in the market at present in terms of, supply of whatever it might be, how does that look?
For us, it's probably staff. I think staff on two front, because we're growing. We need more staff, and we're actively recruiting. Recruitment itself is very difficult at the moment. I'm sure everyone's going through the same. And I think on top of that is the training as well. We're kind of coming up to 3 years back, kind of from when the pandemic started to where we are now. The market and the SLAs and the industry we're in, the customer expectation is very high. It's what I call back to normal. However, our general supply of staff and the clientele of suppliers, we're still recovering. We still need time to recover from that. So therefore, there's a very much an imbalance of what we can deliver and what's been asked. What's been asked is what was 3 years ago, and it was deliverable because everything was in place. Now we're being asked to deliver the same, but we're still building infrastructure to be able to do that. I'd say we're ahead of the game with the drive of Richard, and that helps us go to the right people, to the right places, and make sure we do the right things. But that is kind of my opinion on where we are, and what that also brings, I suppose, is staff training. Staff training hasn't happened for a while. It needs to. We need to start introducing that back into the system. So yeah, that's kind of my view on it.
Yeah, certainly interesting challenges, and again, multiplier effect, I suppose, when you acquire a new site, a new business, it just keeps growing and growing, I suppose. So, and what a kind of, we often talk about the areas that we accept and know that directly relate to repair, i.e., what we would see on a kind of superficial level. But I'm always intrigued to know that, what lies underneath these things, the service provisions that perhaps, we sometimes don't, certainly coming to the fore. Let's talk about, environmental challenges or CSR programs and things like this. Absolutely, vital to business today, in terms of what everyone does. Doesn't matter who you're working with, but partners are looking at these kind of credentials for every business. But there, on top of that, are there, security elements? I would imagine, within a body shop, huge. Waste management, huge. What kind of is changing in that area at the moment?
Yeah, as body shops, Mark, we produce a lot of waste. Okay, we do, and there ain't a one-stop solution out there, which there needs to be. Everybody is doing one thing, but no one's doing everything. So with carbon neutral and net zero, and it's high on our list to achieve as well, everyone's doing a little bit of something. Yeah, I think to bring this all together, someone needs to do a one-stop shop in terms of providing a full service to be able to manage this. I think it all goes down to, asking the right question. And what I mean by that is genuinely in the business, asking the right question. What are we trying to achieve? How are we going to achieve it? And ask the right question in who do we go to get done by, or who can we go to that's going to help us achieve that? It's carbon neutral. Yes, we're definitely pushing hard on that.
Yeah, and I think with that as well, Peter, it's linking that back to culture and the very finding the very essence of why you are doing it. I think really helps drive that those sorts of programs, doesn't it, from your side? So interesting times. Is there anything that you kind of you might like to see from any suppliers? Now, not naming names, but is there sort of new approaches, new ways of thinking, or is there, moments where you think, that was really good and we'd like a bit more of that from the suppliers we work with?
From me, I think it really needs to be support, and that can come in many, many different aspects. Support in the rise of utilities, support in the rise of courtesy car costs, and probably a bit of tolerance and balance in terms of service, SLA expectations. It's a really, really difficult time for us in terms of the repair industry. And I think the only way we're going to get through this is that everybody understands each other and everyone has a bit of tolerance and a balance of what's going on and support each other. And yes, there are some leading insurers and clients who are doing that. And like anything, Mark, there's some who aren't. I think this is a joint thing, and I think the quicker we all join forces in that, I think the better and the stronger we'll come out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the that kind of resonates nicely with what we're doing, and the people we see tuning into webinars and these on-demand shows on a weekly basis. It's interesting to see there is that sort of hunger for understanding, I think, within the industry at the moment. And that is probably a legacy from pandemic times where everyone was very interested to know what other businesses were doing. So long may that continue. I think that's a positive to have certainly come out of all of this. So what do you think is the next kind of key component that repairers, businesses such as yourselves, will need to consider in the context of supply relationships?
I think in terms of supply relationships, everything that comes through to us is something that we have to do. Yeah, we have to buy the paint, we have to buy the parts, we have to use IT equipment, because it just brings it all together in the field that we are. So that itself is already working and it's already in place. What can people do to enhance it? I suppose it's not what we can do as a company, it's what everybody can do. The AI is a big thing coming in, and it needs to be. That's not to say that AI is going to take over and we're not going to need staff. Absolutely going to need staff. AI can only go so far. It doesn't need the human touch, and it needs the human touch to put things into, if you like, an opinion, into a system that everybody understands. So I think AI is massive, and I think moving forward, I would really like to see less of double entry of systems where systems don't talk to each other. I like to see one system talking to another, so you're not writing a customer's name 4 times. Just take out the little inefficiencies that we have in the business. In that, it's so easy for an IT platform, an IT supplier to say, sorry, it doesn't quite do that yet. Yeah, but you're paying a premium for it. It needs to be done, and people need to join forces and understand and bring it all together. Because of the amount of people or the clients that we run with, I would hazard a guess we run 7-8 portals. We run 3 different platforms of IT. Not one talks to the other. If it does, it does the basics. It really needs this double entry of work, and really needs to improve massively in the field that we're in. I think it will help staff. I think it would give staff a big morale because, duplication is something of the past. It should not be something of the future.
Yeah, definitely. Peter, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
No problem, Mark, and thanks for inviting me.
Absolute pleasure. Take care. See you soon.
Cheers.
Right, Dave, thank you so much for joining us today, mate. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
And I know the world is a busy place for you and every other repairer up and down the land, I think, at the moment. So it'd be great to touch upon what you are sort of experienced out there, certainly in terms of obviously products, equipment and services that we're talking about today. So, right now, at this present moment in time, what are the kind of things that your business can't do without right now? And, what is influencing all of this at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's the same for everyone at the moment, Mark. People, since COVID hit, we had COVID, Brexit, now the Ukraine war, I think all those things combined, inflation pressures, all those things, we're all suffering, the same fate to a degree. What happens to everyone. And obviously we're all different sized businesses. We'll all react differently to what's happening. We're constantly, always have been ever since we started this business, looking for ways of keeping our costs down, controlling what's happening. We knew Brexit was coming, so we should have been prepared for it. We didn't know COVID was coming. How can you prepare for that? But it's what you do, every day, that sets you apart, I guess. Our people have always been, the most important thing to us. And keeping those people happy, bringing young people in, bringing the apprentices in has been absolutely key. We saw that back in 2017 when we started. I'm really, really grateful and glad that we followed that process and stringently followed it and carried on. With 17 of them passed now, qualified, and still with us and mentoring new young people coming in. It's just a brilliant success story. So I'm so grateful we did that. So, and I'm glad to say, really, touch wood, we're not a company that struggles for people, which is good. And, we do try and look after our people. Hence, we have very little churn and turnover of staff. So we're in a good place there. Courtesy cars, mobility is a huge problem. Massive knock-on effects with those conductor chips that weren't available or still not available. I saw on the TV last night, about catalytic converters being stolen again, and what we should do to control that. So with the Ukraine war, I think the metal in the catalytic converters comes from Ukraine. So again, another challenge for us to have, and insurance underwriters to think about. I guess so. Lots of challenges. Courtesy cars and mobility. You can't get new cars, so courtesy car providers, enterprise, etc. can't get cars. It is a real challenge. But we've got to. It's always been a challenge because you only have as many courtesy cars as you need to perform the function. But I think a big difference in this time that we're in mobile percentage has increased dramatically of cars coming towards us. So, it's hovering around 40% of the cars coming in now are immobile because of the technology on cars, mainly, Mark. The lights coming on the dash, etc., and they're not drivable. They've got to come in. That technology movement has probably put more pressure on us and bringing cars towards us that we would have held off in the past, which creates, other challenges, I guess. And we're all, we've kitted ourselves out with all the latest ADAS technology and all the sites trying to stop ourselves having inefficiencies going to dealers, etc. We're trying everything to, keep the car moving and keeping the progress of the repair ticking along, keeping the customer happy. But there's lots and lots of challenges.
Interesting times, my friend. And hey, first and foremost, you reference your apprentice program and all the people and the fantastic job you are doing there. And it's great to see all the work that you are doing with the bringing new entrants into the market, which is great. Also, a reference of scale there. I mean, with all of this going on, and kind of we're probably going a bit left field here, but does scale help or hinder with these things, or is it kind of the same across the board? Doesn't matter if you're a single site or you've got as many as you have in the network.
I don't think it really makes a big difference. If you were an independent sat there, you would say, "Oh, it's a massive difference." These big groups have got all this, all these people to help them, and obviously being bigger, you've got more power to have your costs reduced, etc. You haven't really. It's so minimal in the changes it makes, whether you're huge and have a network of nationwide body shops or an independent. You sail your own ship at the end of the day, and it depends how you sail it. You can sit there and moan and groan, or you can sit there and go, no, I'm going to do something a bit different. You don't have to keep having everyone's work, for instance. You don't have to have every work provider or insurer that comes to your door. You don't have to have those contracts. That's your choice. It's completely your choice. So picking your partners and picking the people you want to work with, and proving to those partners that you are good for your word, I think anyone can do that. Anyone can do it. So, and as I said, this stuff happens to everyone. If it's raining, you and me go outside, we both get wet. One of us will moan, one of us will go, "Oh, what a beautiful day to be outside in the wet." It depends how you deal with the situation. So we're all having the same pressures, the inflations, etc. It's what you do. You can sit there and moan, or look at the business and go, "Okay, what can we do to influence what's happening at the moment? What can we do?" And yes, if you're bigger, or you've got a voice, like this platform. If you've got a platform like this, you can talk about it. You might not want to share what you think, to help others. But I mean, I've always hopefully been very open what we've done and what we've looked at in the past. I'm happy to share what we do, and if anyone takes any benefit from it, brilliant. I love the industry. I want to help the industry. I don't just want to help Gemini. And we don't always do the right thing, but we do something. I think that's the important thing. Sitting there doing nothing is not going to help anyone, but no. Doing something is important.
No, absolutely right, Dave. And you've always supported us in what you've done, and it's been great to hear your thoughts. Certainly, since we got thrust into the midst of the pandemic and sort of our journey throughout that. So really do appreciate it. And it is very interesting how sort of times are changing, and you talked about kind of picking and choosing partners there. Again, a lot of the conversations I have with repairers right now, focuses very much around that. People are kind of taking a step back and a good look at their business and deciding, which is the correct path for me. And it's really interesting times. And I think, that's probably been felt across the market, really. Yeah. So we are seeing lots of change. So on the note of, we touched upon courtesy cars, but we the big topics, if you like, capacity, we've got energy costs, we've got inflationary pressures, we've got technology, we've got personnel, which you've touched upon. Is any one of those kind of greater at the moment, and is kind of, really having your attention in terms of how it's impacting Gemini or across the industry as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, parts are a huge challenge. And they change day by day, dealer by dealer, whether you're going to get parts, etc. It's brilliant to see, the likes of Synetic, taking that challenge on and giving us a supply of green parts. That's a great opportunity. And, if your moral compass is set right, you should be trying to recycle and reuse things. So I think that's a good thing. There's help there, and lots of the insurers are pushing that bandwagon as well to try and help. Consumable prices, paint prices, paint increases. I always feel, the repairer, unfortunately, is a dam for these. It's all coming down river. The paint suppliers put their price up, the distributor puts their price up. and poor old Body Shop has to just soak the price up. You can't. I had an invoice from my local council yesterday to pay for my brown waste bin, and it's gone up £3 this year. I've just got to stomach that, haven't I? I can't put my price up, and unfortunately that's the situation we're in. But we can do something about it, because we may be the dam at the end of the river, but it doesn't mean to say you have to accept the links in the chain getting to us. So as it's coming down the river, do I need to go through this channel that I'm going through? Can we go direct? Is there a different route that we can take out some of these links in the chain that are, I think you've got to ask yourself, are they efficient? Are they giving us any value or benefit anymore? And the costs are going to keep coming. Every year the paint price is going to go up. So what do we do about things like that? Rather than just keep accepting it, what do we do about it? It's going to happen, so it's going to happen. It's what we do about it. And certainly for us, we're looking at those links in the chain and saying, what's the value added bit there for us? And how can I get this smoother transition, a directer transition, and better control in the sites, better control of the consumables and the paint when it lands on site. We found some quite exciting things, which I don't want to obviously say today, but I will do once it's working. I will shout from the rooftops, because I'd want everyone to benefit from it. But we've got some exciting things we're working on in the background at the moment that I think will control our consumable, our paint, in a much better way than we are today, and that's what we've got to work towards. It might be 6 months, 12 months time when that realises the potential, but it's coming, and it's something we're working on today, rather than just having another paint increase, having another consumable increase, and just soaking up the cost.
Interesting stuff. Look forward to hearing more about that in due course. But you're right. It's one of those elements that and I think everyone is looking at their business supply chain. It doesn't matter where in the chain you are. It's kind of just exploring that. I think dare I say it, harping back to the pandemic again, but it's made everyone kind of have a good step back and look at what we were doing was the right thing to do, or in the right way. So you as a business, obviously a big multi-site operator, there are obviously differences in terms of the demands of your business to other repairers, single sites or smaller groups, whatever it might be. But are there sort of, challenges? Are there significant differences that you could highlight, that you can sort of say, this is very different for us in comparison to others at the moment?
I don't know. I never sort of feel we are this massive business. I know, we've got nigh on 700 staff, but how many staff do I see in a working week? They're all there doing their job, and we've always had a Bible, a process to follow that we've all believed in, and followed that process. So bolting sites on and making the group bigger. We've all followed the same process, so hopefully we get the same outcome, and our insurer partners get the same outcome, more importantly, and our customers. So I never feel like we've got this big business. I walk in every day thinking it's just this single site, but it's it isn't, but that's how we feel about it. So I don't really, there's lots of consolidation at the moment, lots and lots. With groups growing quickly as well, and bolting on, other groups. So other groups are vanishing and merging into bigger and bigger groups, which, I think is great, all for it. Quite happy, as long as the industry keeps thriving. I really don't mind what's happening elsewhere, and I can't obviously speak for what those all the other guys are doing, but I don't think there's anything for us that is different to anyone else. As I said before, crap happens to everybody. How you deal with it is is the difference that's made. So I don't think there's anything. Probably because of our size, courtesy cars are a huge challenge because we need a lot of them. if you're a single site, you might be able to, poach 3 or 4 courtesy cars from someone, but because of the size of us, that's a major challenge, and the whole mobility piece really ought to be looked at. I think the insurers ought to look at the mobility piece a bit differently and see if there's a better way for the customer, for us. Bringing cars on site and putting them in courtesy cars unnecessarily quickly is not really the way forward. I think we do need to find some different approaches, and maybe because of the size of us, we've got a bit of a louder voice, or a voice at the table more than others, to try and make that happen, really. And I think that's what we need to try and work on.
Makes me smile as I'm sat here, because you talk about having a business with 700 people, which is a big number. But then you kind of, it's the way you scale it down, and it's the way you look at it when and then you talk about kind of a single site, and the kind of, then the blueprint that rolls across all the sites. So it's very interesting. And hey, as you say, I suppose in your world, from a single site, the challenges, if you like, and the opportunities, let's be honest, then just increase respectively in terms of how many sites you add on. So it's very interesting. Absolutely. Now, do you think there's anything in there that, again, in the context of products, equipment, services, that kind of gets forgotten, if you like? I.e., we all see, the nature of the business is we take care of customers first and foremost, people, and what do you know? We also, repair cars or units, call them what you want. That's the crux of it, or at least it should be, I think. But beneath that sits a whole raft of other things. And, we talk about, I don't know, security, for example. Each site has to have, secure a site, waste management, environmental policies, all these kind of things are behind the scenes part of the business, but arguably not directly associated with a repair entity. Is that sort of changing and in any way, shape or form in terms of costs, implications and remuneration of those sort of specific bits and pieces?
Yeah, I mean, this, to be honest, Mark, I think the repair's forgotten about most of the time. It's a given, isn't it? The given, you repair the car and the quality's fine. That's just a given. I mean, there's, you spoke about a lot of environmental stuff, waste stuff, BSI audits, insurer audits. You need a team of people to fulfill the functions, don't you? I mean, transport is a huge area. A single site, multi-site, you got a lot of trucks running around the country collecting cars, having an O license or numerous O licenses and managing all those trucks, the logistics of all that. That's a huge task and a huge cost, in the background. Obviously, with fuel prices going up, running diesels around the country isn't great. I don't know where that's going to go, really, because, with the banning of diesel engines, it's going to be an interesting one, because, all the trucks are diesels, aren't they? Based on efficiency and how many miles you can do in them. I certainly know in our Cornwall sites, they ran out of diesel completely in Cornwall a few months ago. The trucks were just unusable. So, that's only going to get worse, Mark, as it goes along. So what do we do about that? What do we do about the collections, deliveries? I saw Copart yesterday, I think on LinkedIn, was saying they changed their big transporters, haven't they, to a greener fleet, But, there's so many things in the background. We have to think about gender pay gaps, ethnic pay gap. There's so many things now in the HR, in the people part of the business, that is just taken for granted. We have to do that. I mean, we didn't, when we had a couple of sites, we didn't have a HR department, because I always thought if I had a HR department, everyone would moan at that department. So I didn't have one. They moaned at me instead. You can only do that for so long before you've got to, give in and say, okay, we do need a HR department. So, the admin and the burden of the background that needs to be done. Don't get me wrong, but I think buzzwords keep coming out. Someone will start a buzzword, it's the environment, it's past 2060. There's a classic that's not long come out the woodwork. you need to do this, you need to be carbon neutral. It's all grand and brilliant, lovely to listen to. And there's numerous ways of doing that. You could plant a load of trees and say I'm carbon neutral. It doesn't make, you're still creating the waste and the mess and everything, but I'm planting a few trees. That might make you feel a bit better or might tick a box. That's not it for me. Ever since we started, we've always wanted to do the right thing. So measuring where you are currently as a business, trying to get to carbon neutral, we may be in a much better place than a lot of people. So to get down to the next step is much harder because you've already trimmed out most of the waste. So, past 2060 comes along, we're probably 5 years down the journey of that. So you're in a different starting place, but you do have to put the effort in to all these other areas, to be, a proper business with your moral compass in the right place. But no one's paying for it. You've got to pay for it as a business if that's what you want. And not just to tick a box. You've got to do it for the right reasons and want to do it. But there's lots and lots of hidden areas of repairing a car that no one gives any thought to. Transport, I think, is a huge one. I really do. I think it's just a forgotten thing that we collect and deliver cars and expect to do it on brand new trucks, with the O licenses, that all the lights work and everything does what it's supposed to do. I think it's just a forgotten area of the business completely, really.
Really, really interesting stuff. And fascinating. And hey, for me, I love that kind of, the business world, if you like. So I love understanding how things work. And to hear that is very interesting, very eye-opening. So in terms of supplier relationships, now, depending, where you look at that, downstream, upstream, whatever it might be. Is there anything you sort of, as you sit here today, would like to see from suppliers? Now, is there any change in that relationship, that mentality, beyond, the obvious sort of financials, if you like, and bits and pieces? But is there any differences that you think have already occurred and or you'd like to see in the future?
I think we need innovation. We need new things. I mean, every day I try and reinvent the wheel in one way or another. I want new things. I want new products. I want new things. I don't want them to come and say, you can have these consumables and you can have more discount, or you can have a trip to Portugal's golf. I'm not interested in that. That's not benefiting the business or the industry. What we need is innovative stuff. We've since COVID, I think, and inflationary pressures, energy pressures is a classic with spray booths. We've been roll priming for the past 10 years. So we never put a car in the spray booth to primer it and bake it. Why would you do that? It's beyond me, So we roll prime, the saving, might cost me 67 pence to roll prime a car compared to £8 to put it in the booth and paint it. That adds up. That adds up over a month. So, most of our sites have only got one spray booth. Our process always was never to primer the car in the booth because we can't afford to do that. We haven't got the time to do that. So, some things like that, we have literally gone back to our process and said, are we doing the right things for the energy costs, for everything that's happening in the industry at the moment? Are these right? Are they still fit for purpose as they are today? And going back to our suppliers of tools, equipment, induction heaters, glue pullers, whatever it is, we've gone back and said, is there anything new out there? Are we using still the latest piece of technology? Is there anything better that we can use than we are today? You've got to constantly keep going back, and looking through it and asking your suppliers what else is out there, because if you don't ask, you don't get. And I mean, even with painters, when we started in 2008, we brought the CIMAC drying technology into our spray booths, which was brilliant. It was game changing. It certainly was for us. Drying paint, watching paint dry, I'd never been so excited about doing it. But the products have moved on so dramatically now. You don't need the CIMAC anymore because the paint product dries as quick as the CIMAC made it dry. back in, however many years, 14 years ago, whatever it was. So the products have caught up. But if you don't ask, you don't know the products have caught up. So people could be painting today and still baking the car for 35 minutes. Well, you can't afford that energy cost, Mark. You can't afford it. I used to work with painters. They put the oven on in the morning just to heat the workshop and make them warm. Well, you can't do it. That control has got to be in place. And I think that's where a lot of body shops could walk around their own shops and look at their process and say, is this still fit for today's world? And that's what our team have literally gone back through, looked at all the equipment, all the suppliers, all the products, and said, are these still fit for what we do today? And is there anything new? And I think that's something you need to do anyway, regular, but certainly after COVID and with everything going on, you need to go back to basics really and say, is this the right way to repair a car still?
It's a really interesting sort of discipline to get into the habit of doing that regularly, isn't it? Because you can get bogged down in the day to day, and before you know it, 2 years, 3 years has gone, and you've missed something somewhere along the line. So do you think, or what do you think is the kind of next key component, if you like, for your business stroke repairers will need to consider in the context of supply chain relationships? Is there anything sort of coming? Obviously that innovation point is massive. Keep looking, keep exploring.
Well, for us, as I say, we've got a couple of exciting things on the bubble that I can't tell you at this moment in time, but and they're not things we've invented. For me, it was a lucky meeting with someone that just sparked a light bulb above my head as it did above his as we had the conversation, and that's it is quite innovative, and I think it will be game changing for us when we install that. So it is something being installed into our shops that we're piloting at the moment, which will revolutionise, I think, how we receive product and how we control product on site without giving the game 100% away, and keep our costs down. No, keep our costs down, which is what we need, to control it. And we most of our work is on a fixed cost model, so our cost is very, very important. We need to maintain our costs, with everything going up. That's very difficult to do. But I still think there's loads of opportunities for us to be able to do. And it is, simple things, everyone uses PPS pots with painting. If you go in your paint mixing room and you see them with painting, you could say, oh dear, we don't want to see that. We don't want any waste. But even how they store that, if you tip it up the other way so the filter doesn't get blocked, you can reuse that. If you don't, you've got to scrap the lid and put another lid on. Well, you work out the cost of PPS pots when you're doing that. That mounts up. It's silly things, really. It's in the greater detail, as always, Mark, with these things. You've got to really be in the detail to understand. And the good thing with me and Phil, we are still in the shops. We still think that way. Both very different. Me and Phil, obviously, I was off the shop floor. Phil wasn't, but which is great. It's a good combination. He puts me straight and I put him straight on different things. It's an education for us both when we're in the shops, and that's really good. And I think it's important still to see what the guys are doing on the shop floor and see if there's a different way. Ask the question, why are you doing it that way, to try and fix it, really.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dave. Really appreciate it.
No problem. You're welcome. Nice to see you.
Catch up with you soon, mate. Take care.
Smart. Thank you.
So there we have it, a truly fascinating insight into the thought processes of two of the UK's largest repair operators, the challenges, the opportunities and the realities of operating within the sector right now. Without doubt, it would seem things are and potentially need to change for the future. Big thank you to Peter and Dave for their contributions on today's On Demand show. And of course, a huge thank you to the ARC360 corporate partners, Solera Audatex, BASF, BMS, CAPS, Copart, Emax, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Innovation Group, Merca, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and Sherwin-Williams, as well as our partners, Aztec, the Green Part Specialists in DARSA, Prasco UK, And our associate partners, GM&I Accident Repair Centres, Trend Tracker and Thatcham Research. We're back live with a webinar on Wednesday, the 15th of June, 1:30 p.m. to discuss all things business strategies and best practices. And of course, in the meantime, please do check out the Motor Claims Showcase event taking place at the CBS Arena in Coventry on Wednesday, the 29th of June, where we'll be hearing more from Dave and finding out much more from numerous other partners and stakeholders from across the supply chain. Link available on the screen now. Take care, everybody, and I can't wait to catch up with you all very soon.